Greetings, fellow Toastmasters, honored guests, viewers at home. First off, right out of the bat, I just want to get maybe one or two bodies over here because the boat is lopsided. And I just don't want the boat to flip. Okay, good. That's better. Thank you. Welcome. Welcome to Golden Speakers Toastmasters of Fairfield. It's Tuesday evening at 7:45-ish. And we are in the west side of the Hy-Vee store in Burlington, on Burlington Avenue in Fairfield, in the club room. So we're here every Tuesday. Please feel free to come down and see what we're doing. First off, I see we have some guests. So I'd like to have them stand and lady here, Carmen. Carmen, why don't you just tell us what brought you to Toastmasters tonight?
I already took Toastmasters maybe 1.5 years ago in California, and I really love it. I grew so much as a person. And then I was missing that because I came here and I was working. I was just kind of pretty busy adapting me to a small town because I was living in a very big town. So when I found online that there was a Toastmaster here, I was really thinking about coming, but you know, there are many things that happens, and then today is the day, so I'm here just to improve my pronunciation. English is my second language. So I'm from Peru, so my first language is Spanish. So I just want to be a good speaker and enjoy the sessions here.
Great. Okay, we also have one of our former members. Invitation went out over the weekend to a number of our former members, just inviting them, telling them we're excited about the new Pathways program and inviting them to take a look at some of the skills and competencies, see if there's something that they would like to connect with, and inviting them to come back and join the club and check it out. And so one of our former members, and actually a former president of the club, is here. And Ron, you want to stand and say hello and what brought you here?
Good evening, fellow Toastmasters and guests. As mentioned, I was a member for 6 years before, and then 2 years before that, before we moved away. Had the dubious honor of being able to stand there in the old country and saying I had bladder cancer and had to leave for treatment. And that was a 5.5-year odyssey, which here I am. So I'm this way instead of that way. So life is good and getting better, and it's time for me to come out of my little self-absorbed shell and get back out and try and help. So I'm back.
All right, we're very glad to have Ron here. Yes. Okay. We'll just settle back. Ron, you know how this pretty much goes, and Carmen, we've already talked, and you'll see some things here. We don't have a prepared speech today. Alex was scheduled to start her Pathways journey, and there's a lot of pieces. How many people have become Pathways confirmed at this point? Okay, so we have 3. I got in there because I said I have to walk the talk if I'm going to be doing it. I encourage you all to get in and get your assessment done and look at what Toastmasters recommends for you. You don't have to take that particular path, but it can be interesting, and it is based on what information you're giving them. Another reason to get in there, even if you're not going to be using it that much, is that maybe you're staying on the traditional path for a little while longer. There are speech evaluations. So for example, Alex was going to be doing an icebreaker in her path. Well, once I got in and am now confirmed, there's a section called speech evaluations, and all the evaluations that you could possibly need are in this one place and they're alphabetical. So you just go down and you find where the evaluation is for your speaker. If you're the speaker, you can do that for your evaluation and send it to them, or if you're the evaluator, as I saw, I went, I can just download this for myself. Anyway, so I think it's going to be good, and we all are learning. Congratulations to those who are on, and just encouraging you guys to go ahead and take a look at it and start noodling around. That's what I call it, noodling around.
Exploration.
Yeah, it's a pasta format that's good for you. All right, with that, I think we're all done. I'm going to go ahead and call up our Toastmaster for the evening, Janet Evertson. Thank you. And while I'm still shaking your hand, I'm going to mention the agenda at this point looks like we're ending a little earlier, and we're not going to be doing that because we do have officer elections this evening, and we also have a couple more business projects. So we're just learning how to make this template work for us, and it's a little bit of a project. And we really want to thank our VP of Education he was traveling over the weekend, but he was focused in helping get this agenda put together. So we really appreciate that as well. All right, thank you, Madam Toastmaster. Thank you.
Welcome, fellow Toastmasters and guests and viewers at home. So tonight, we have a cast of characters. Number one, our timer is Veda Royale. If you would tell us how that's going to work, Veda.
The timer is responsible for the time, to keep people within time for the speeches, and tonight there will be no speeches, so I'll be responsible for the table topics. Where the table topics will come on red will be the finish mark, but the green will come on at 1 minute, yellow will come on at 1.5 minutes, red will come on at 2 minutes, and you have 30 seconds or be disqualified. We also have speech evaluators at 2 to 3 minutes, where red would be at 3 minutes, and the general evaluator at 3 to 4 minutes. If there's any other roles during the meeting, please make me aware of them and their timing. Thank you, Janet.
Thank you, Veda. And next we have our grammarian, Dee Stilfer.
The word of the day is resilient.
Tell us what this means.
Resilient means being able to stay the course, and the quote is, the Golden State Warriors are resilient.
Thank you, very good.
Yeah.
Can you write the definition up there?
Write the meaning. yeah.
Write the definition, so everyone can refer.
And today, our counter will be Fraser Jones.
Good evening, fellow Toastmasters and guests and viewers at home. And tonight I'll be the counter. I'll be keeping track of all the filler words like you know, and tongue clicks and false start that you made. And it is in the interest of getting you to use it less and be better, improve in the future. So I'll be giving a report at the end of the meeting.
Thank you. Fraser.
And tonight, our general evaluator will be Dan Craig. We hear from you, Dan?
Later.
Later? Okay, sounds good.
Yes.
And our greeter, joke master, Dee Stilfer. Okay. Next, I'd like to introduce our table topics master, Peter Armstrong.
Thank you, Madam Toastmaster. For our table topics today, we will build, or I should say, talk on the theme of the meeting, which is printed on your agenda. And the theme is, or the thought of the day is, if you prefer, the successful warrior is the average man with laser-like focus. And so during the table topics section, you've already heard that the timing of the speech is a maximum of 2 minutes, or 2.5 minutes if you speak with the red light on. And you will be speaking on a topic that I present you with when you arrive at the front of the hall. And that's pretty much it. You get to make free rein of your creativity and your humor and whatever you would like to communicate this evening to the other members of the club. And so with that, we will open the floor for volunteers. And in case you all speak at once, oh, thank you. Janet.
All right.
A big hand for Janet here. So, I'll read the quote once more.
Okay.
The successful warrior, it's by Bruce Lee, by the way. The successful warrior is the average man or woman with laser-like focus. And for your talk, would you please tell us whether you agree or disagree with Mr. Lee and why?
Okay, thank you. Shake hands.
Good luck.
Okay, fellow Toastmasters and viewers at home, as well as honored guests. I need to speak up. Good idea. Thank you. Yes, I agree that a good warrior, man or woman, needs laser focus. And I have seen that in the work that I do, which is sort of the opposite, because I'm usually doing several projects at once. And I understand that's not a good idea, but when I'm on the particular project, I do focus. And I'm like really, trying hard to stick with it. Though, and that could be why I haven't made a ton of money, because I do take phone calls and then another email and this and that. So, but I am getting really good at jumping from one thing to the next and getting it all done. So that's becoming a warrior in my situation. I've always been trying to become a warrior. And perhaps scheduling and focusing on one thing at a time will be my success. We'll find out. In the meantime, I enjoy juggling a lot of balls and trying to keep them all in the air and focus as much as I need to on each item as it comes along. Good.
Deb, Janet.
Thank you, Janet. Any more volunteers?
Just because of the camera, because of the box. Good. Yay, Carmen. Woo!
Bearing in mind the theme of the meeting, can you think of an example of a public figure or historical figure who may have maintained a single purpose focus and speak about their successes and their lack of it.
Good evening, Toastmaster members, people at home. So I am a Catholic, and I think one of the best representations of Catholic Church is the Pope. And the Pope is so important for us. I think this new Pope actually is the one that is trying to change the church for better. And like many years ago, or not really many years, but a couple of years ago, the church was passing for troubled times. So like many people was doing things that are sins. Some of them were incarcerated. There is still poverty. People criticize the Pope because they have so many luxuries. Actually, this new Pope is the one that has like a laser focus to become the person that is going to show us a path for being like St. Francis was, pretty humble, pretty focused in to be with God, to do good to the other people. And I think it is gonna be one of the best examples for me, because it's my religion, to just clarify that that the church is gonna be a better place from now on. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Carmen. Jean.
I have to go on the alternate once.
Okay.
No, those are just prepared speeches. You can certainly remember things and tell people after the meeting. Thank you. Okay.
Jean, please tell us how you feel about parents encouraging their children to maintain a laser-like focus, and why you feel that way. Would you like me to repeat it?
No, got it. Mr. Table Topics Master, fellow Toastmasters, honored guests, and viewers at home, I don't agree with that statement. I don't agree that parents should require their children to have a laser-like focus. They're children. Developmentally, that's not where they are. They don't have the stuff to do that. On the other hand, what they do have the stuff to do is to go out, and I do believe in this, is to go out into nature, to play, to run, to go other places, not to be micromanaged. They talk about the helicopter parents. I am not a parent, but I hear about helicopter parents who are just always there to buzz down, and I believe that children should be very wide screen, very open screen, taking in all through all their senses, all that they're experiencing. There'll be time later to focus in and bring those things to bear when their actual physiology is capable and is grown to be able to make those distinctions. And it'll be richer as a result because they've been allowed to just be very free and be children. Therefore, I think I'm going to just conclude that I would heartily recommend that parents do not require their children to be single on focused. I think it would hurt them for their later life, and I think that it will keep them from really enjoying their childhood in the present.
Thank you. Ron.
Okay.
For adults, what do you feel are the advantages and the disadvantages of maintaining focus, too much focus, or any amount of focus?
Good question. Excuse me. Fellow Toastmasters, table topic master, guests and viewers at home. Funny thing about adults, now that I'm pushing 71, I'm just going into middle age. I feel like I'm starting to become an adult. And the question is, what am I going to do when I grow up? And it's the focus is critically important, but the wide angle, because the trouble when we focus too much is we lose track of the bigger picture. Nothing stands in isolation. It's always part of a thing. A friend of mine is worried about his heart. He's only thinking about his heart, but what we really need to do is deal with the whole body because, well, you don't have a heart separation. No man is an island. We're all interdependent. And we need to focus on taking laser sharp in terms of us being sure to unfold our own latent abilities, to manifest that which the good Lord gave us to our gifts, and not get caught up in the same stale thing of just doing the same old thing. It's time for the 4th of July, where we're going to, 4th of July is wonderful, we all enjoy it, but there's more, so much more. It's just one of those things. So the challenge then is really to, and this is a brief description by a wise man told us once about enlightenment. Enlightenment is the ability to focus, laser sharp focus on a point, while maintaining unbounded awareness. So we don't lose the beauty and the splendor of our creation while we're busily doing just a perfect little thing that needs to be done right here and now. I think we did both in good measure.
Thank you.
I'll do it.
Okay.
D is coming up. Can someone fill in for D as timer?
Jean.
Veda's the timer.
Oh, Veda's the
The
timer.
light.
What's,
Oh, no, I'm the grammarian, sorry.
Oh,
I got all
okay.
screwed up, I'm the grammarian.
D was sitting in the
I
timer's
was sitting
place.
there and I kept looking at the light, okay. I got confused. All right,
Thank you.
yeah,
All right, are you ready, sir?
sure.
Can you think of an example in a book or a movie where the character used the focus in either a good way or in a not so good way? And tell us what you think about how he or she handled that situation.
Well,
You have 30 minutes to think about it.
thank you.
30 seconds, all right.
Fellow Toastmasters, viewers at home, the whole world. When I think of repeat that again.
A book or a movie,
Oh,
or anything, someone you know.
gosh, movies. Well, I think of James Michener. You all know who James Michener is?
Sure. He's an
Author. He writes these books that are like thousands of pages long. And I'm trying to remember the name of the book, but he wrote a book called About the Tells. So in ancient Egypt, they built city up on top of city, up on top of city, and on top of city. And the archaeologists went down and they took these things apart one kind of layer of land and granite at a time. And what Mr. did was to develop a storyline about each generation, each culture that lived in these tells. And the archaeologists had looked at the bones and the fragments and cups and saucers, all kinds of stuff. And the thing about the book that he was writing is you got a really rich feeling about these different cultures going back thousands and thousands of years. And they had things back then called tells. I don't know if you know what tells are. They were cities that were built, and they built another city on top of another city after generation after generation. And he described in very detail, by looking at the archaeological records, of how these different cultures interacted, their children, just all those things about the culture, from this fragments and things from bones and cups and saucers and dirt and all kinds of stuff. It's a very fascinating book. It's 1,000 pages long though, so it's a thing to read. Yeah.
We've got one more on this topic, if anybody's interested.
I could do if someone can time.
Okay.
You're on the yellow, so. Yeah, I don't mind if you leave it on the light as long as it's the right one.
Excuse me. All right. Do you feel that laser-like focus is confined exclusively to human beings, or can it be found in nature? And what are some examples, if you have any?
Madam, Mr. Table Topic Master, Madam Toastmasters, Honored Toastmasters, regular Toastmasters, guests, and viewers at home. Now that I've wasted at least 10 seconds on that introduction, I can have 1 minute and 45 seconds to waste on a very curious topic. I was thinking this is such a challenging topic today about focus. Very unusual. I don't remember any topic like this, but I can tell you that from studying lasers, the key to a laser is coherent light. When I was a young boy, my father brought home a laser. It was about this big. It put out about what a laser pointer will today. That's about the size of a pencil. But it was about a foot long, and it had a cord on it that was about 1/2 inch thick. Plug it into the wall, drive our cat crazy. After we were done doing that and following dogs down the road, we realized the power of lasers, which I quickly convinced my friends at school that I could cut through safes. And had them believe me for a while until I admitted, showing them that it really couldn't cut through a piece of paper. I think the laser-like focus, though, of that laser beam at that time was better than what you get in a cheap laser pointer today. You could aim it down the street as far as you could see, and the laser beam would be the same size. In fact, I think that laser beams that are high quality would go out a mile. I think in nature, the example of the laser beam focus will be like the kitty cat waiting to pounce. You see the coherence, the silence. You see the intensity of that kitty cat or that lion waiting for its target. So that's where I find coherence in nature. Mr. Table Topics.
Thank you. That has pretty well exhausted my list of questions for this topic, and it turns out that our table topics section tonight is a tad longer than the agenda may have led us to believe. And as a result, I'm going to branch out into a new topic. I'm Also open to suggestions that are passed by envelope, spitball, or any other way. Yes, sir.
I'm your next volunteer.
Okay. I think I have a question ready for
And
you.
you know what you can do when you're sitting and he's, doing the
Yes,
thing,
I have
you
to-
can feverishly be right
Yes.
down there.
I'm working on
Yeah.
that. It's a new skill for me to be
With
able to do
laser-like
that well.
focus.
Yes,
Right.
laser-like
You could
focus.
you could also reissue some of these good questions. They're worthy of several answers.
Art suggests that I should reissue some of the old questions to new people. Then the second person does get a longer time to think about it, but they still don't know what I'm going to ask. But I'll try
It's
to
just
come up
my
with some
opinion that
new.
these are great questions and worthy of more than one opinion or talk.
Yeah.
But
Or if anybody has more questions about laser-like focus, we
All
can
right.
go there. So the question is, the weather has turned warm. This is a complete change of topic. And the weather has turned warm. And,
really,
and I experienced that as I drove back into town after being away for the weekend, where it was cooler. What are your plans to make use of this warm weather this summer?
good evening, Toastmasters, returning members, guests, viewers at home. I haven't actually made plans for taking advantage of warmer weather. I made plans last fall to avoid the colder weather that the rest of you suffered through in December, January, February, and March of this year. I thought I was pretty clever to go to Panama, Central America, 9 degrees north of the equator, where everyone speaks Spanish, and experience 85 to 90 degree breezy, low humidity weather for all those months that you all were suffering. That was the plan that I had, and it worked great. But I'm actually fascinated with the laser-like focus question, because there's a proverb that I think I may have mentioned recently, that it takes 10,000 hours of practicing a skill to master it, to become a bona fide master of something. I think it's possible for children to display laser-like focus because their interests will take them relentlessly to follow a subject that they're interested in without deviation, and their parents may want them to come in and sit down for dinner, and the child is fascinated with something and is exhibiting that laser-like focus. It doesn't have to be compelled. It's attracted by interest. Michael Jackson had a laser-like focus on the skills involved in being a basketball player, and it was what propelled him to his position in the pantheon of basketball players. So I believe that laser-like focus is a key technique, and that there's evidence that it's necessary in order to be masterful. Mr. Table Topics Master.
Thank you, Art. I like your examples. And I could add Mozart and Gordie Howe, the hockey player who loved to play hockey all day long, all winter long. as other examples of children who didn't have to be coerced into being focused. So thank you for that example. Dan. I will suggest a topic to you, but you can take any topic you like and run with it if you don't like my topic. And that's the best deal I can offer you. In Fairfield, we have warm weather, it is true, but we have been missing last summer and again so far this summer a certain amount of precipitation or rain that we would have liked to have, but seem to have avoided while everyone else gets it. So my question to you is, what would be the best way for us to somehow make the rain happen? If there is a way. Can you think of a way? And what would Native Americans suggest or any such thing? Let's get some rain here. Can you help?
Mr. Topics Master, fellow Toastmasters, honored guests. I think that it's probably the most effective way to get rain is to wait. It's somewhat the law of averages. And we are also, I would suggest, have very short memories, because about a week ago, everybody's yard was just growing like 6 inches every night. You'd mow the lawn, you'd go out the next day and go, what? So I, for one, have enjoyed this entire week without rain, but I believe that if we just wait a little bit, it's going to come along. There might even be some tomorrow. You just wait. Mark my words. Now, if that doesn't work out, there are other things we could try. There are, of course, rain dances. There's the rain rag that we can play in various ways. I think there were rainmakers in the Old West. They traveled town to town and kind of huckster the citizens into thinking that they could create a rainstorm for them. And I think the secret to their success was the law of averages. If we wait a little while, it's going to rain.
Fraser. Shifting gears again.
Or you can go back to the.
Oh, okay. To the laser-like focus.
Yeah.
What is your favorite topic that surrounds laser-like focus? Why is it your favorite? And please tell us as much information about it as you care to pack into 2 minutes.
I believe laser-like focus is necessary when the occasion arises. But generally, I think that one should be thinking of the wholeness. Right? But when some specific things come up and you need to focus, like, for example, George Washington Carver, he told the farmers to plant peanuts. After the farmers plant the peanuts, they come back to him and say, "What? We have all these peanuts. What are we going to do with it?" He went to his lab and came up with hundreds of products to get from the peanuts. I mean, he had to have that laser-like focus to do that. But at the same time, he had to have the general overview of what is required, what people actually require to come up with those things. So you cannot look at just laser-like focus in isolation, right? Because you can actually get sidetracked and go down the wrong path. Mr. Topic Master.
Thank you very much. All right, at this point, we will bring the table topics to a close unless anyone is absolutely wishing that they could speak again. Thank you all very much for your talks tonight. We've enjoyed many different approaches to the same topic. And now it's time to go into the evaluation section, if I'm not mistaken. Excuse me?
Voting for best.
Voting
topic now, for best topics.
Who qualified?
And I have to do the timing.
Who qualified?
Okay, the
He's doing it, it's okay.
today in the timing, there was one person who did not qualify, Art. I will read the qualifications. Today, everyone else qualified, and that was Janet, Carmen, Jean, Ron, Dee, Veda. Art did not qualify, Dan, and Frazier all qualified.
All right. Thank you very much. The ballots are going around, and please, everyone fill out.
All right.
Fill out a ballot for best table topic speaker. Evaluators will be Art Atkinson.
Once again, Toastmasters, greetings. I'm going to use the same general pattern for evaluating each person, looking at whether they greeted the audience or not, took time to think what the structure was, what their strengths were, and what they might change or do differently. Janet greeted the audience and the viewers at home. She took 30 seconds, or approximately, she took some time to think. She told a personal story of her tactics with relation to getting everything done and answering the laser-like focus question with a yes. What I would suggest that she might think about changing would be to say, well, actually, even though I think it's important, my answer is no, because I'm actually learning the skill of multitasking and getting everything done that's required of me. Jean spoke. She greeted the audience. She took time to think. She gave a very direct disagreement answer, that she did not think that children should have laser-like focus compelled or imposed upon them. Her structure was very solid and involved answering the question, giving her reasons why, and wrapping it up at the end with a summary that brought it back to the question that was originally asked of her. One thing that I would suggest that she might change would have been to acknowledge the fact that children will oftentimes exhibit laser-like focus on their own, drawn by their own interest in whatever they're focused on. Dee spoke. He did not greet the audience or take any time. He almost immediately began his talk about Michener's book, the name of which I didn't catch. The strengths were that his vocal projection is excellent and that he had very fluid manner of describing the contents of this book. What I would suggest that might have made the talk stronger would be to focus on how Michener, or to elucidate how Michener focused in some laser-like fashion on these various details. What was the focus? What we heard was a large number of details. When Dan spoke, he did greet the audience. He did take time to think. His structure was a 3 or 4 points structure. He said, in relation to not enough rain, he said, well, the first thing is I think we need some patience. He moved on to another point that involved rain dances and other traditional means of propitiating the gods to have rain. And he moved on to a third point about can't read my own, the law of averages, and the fact that those who use dowsing sticks or rain dances or something like that can take advantage of the law of averages. They're going to succeed a few times just because it is going to rain. The strengths were a very fluid set of transitions from one point to the next. What I could suggest by way of changing would have been to actually enumerate, these are my suggestions for how we might actually generate rain. Point 1, point 2, point 3, because you did actually have 3 and maybe 4 points to answer the question. So that would be my evaluation.
Thank you, Art. And to do the even-numbered people is Jean.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
You have 5 people, right?
5.
I'm gonna give you 5 minutes for the red. 1 minute per person.
That's a lot.
I gave him 4 minutes for 4 people.
Okay. Well, how about we do this? How about we do 3 to 4, and I just can't linger.
Okay.
And I never do this. I always want more time. So this is really hard. And I was going to mention to Carmen, don't start me, but I was going to mention that this is something our club likes to do, is to evaluate table topics, which you may not have had in your other club, but we like to evaluate everything that moves practically. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Table Topics Master. I'm going to start with Carmen. She got the question about a public or historical figure with laser-like focus. She had a good opening. She had a personal disclosure that led to her selection. I'm Catholic, so someone I find with very high focus is the Pope. And she also used the term in her speech, has laser focus, to show the path. I like that. I would recommend a bit more projection to the back of the room, but hey, she doesn't know us. We are just weird strangers. So that will come. Just a little more projection to D back there. Number 2, Ron, he got the question, adults, danger of too much focus. And Ron, they put up the dichotomy of their, you can have too much focus, but you don't want to lose the bigger picture. And he made that point. He used a lot of gestures I liked. He sort of had this going, a little bit of this, and wide, and like that. So that really helped me to see when he was talking about focus and comparing it with a wide angle lens. I would say for Ron, a little more projection. Now Ron knows us in theory, but he hasn't been here for a while, so he can work up to that too. And then also a little slower rate. Some of it was a little fast, so I would slow that down a little bit. Veda, loved Veda, the way he took the question and he went, I'm just gonna get out of the laser-like focus people and I'm gonna talk about lasers. Legitimate, I love that. So he took an angle and he talked about coherence and he talked about the foot long and the cord and the kittens and all that. So he had great gestures too. Really like that. So his conclusion is this is where he had found coherence in nature. So he came back and he addressed the question. I would recommend for him, I loved it. The opening was a little bumpy. It looked like he was trying to evade the question. Little wimpy. He nailed it anyway though. Art, plans for warm weather. Art also flipped it. Said, hey, I'm not worried about plans for warm weather. I just congratulate myself that I created a successful plan for avoiding the cold weather. So that was fun. He used the word pantheon, which is, as far as I'm concerned, 25-cent word. Very good. And he talked about mastery and repetition and that laser-like focus was needed. And he brought up that comment about the 10,000 times that you need to get mastery. Art's always very logical and the structure's always there. I didn't really have a suggestion for him. Finally, Fraser, I'm not sure where I am on the lights, but good. Okay, good. So good, okay. So Fraser was given that question, a favorite story about laser-like focus. And I love what Fraser did because he made his point, which was that you need to have the overview of the people's needs at the same time. So that's the general. At the same time, you need to be able to zero in on specific ideas. So he had that dichotomy again of laser-like focus in conjunction with having a big picture. And he gave an example, which I love that. The George Washington Carver, is that right? And the peanut example. I mean, that's what I'm gonna remember when I go home tonight is all of those usages of peanuts and I'll be thinking about George Washington Carver's brain. And that's thanks to Fraser. So I really appreciated that. He had a good conclusion, so you need to have both the general and the specific there. I don't really have a suggestion for Fraser other than a little bit of my usual, which is a little bit of the moving around, but that's just maybe Fraser, but I would say, stand up, but other than that, great job.
Thank you very much, Jean.
Thank you, okay. So we're gonna call up you go ahead and call up the general evaluator.
And now we are going to call up our general evaluator, Dan Craig.
Leo.
Thank you, Mr. Topics Master. Our first order of business is going to be to vote for Best Evaluator. Mr. Timer, do we have qualifying evaluators?
Both Art and Jean qualified within 30 seconds of 4 minutes.
Okay. Let's take 1 minute and vote for Best Evaluator. Vote for Art or for Jean. Okay, we are back. We are back. And at this point, we want to have the reports from our role players. I'm going to ask the role players to come to the front of the room to give their reports tonight. So first, could we have Veda come up and give the timer's report?
Thank you, Dan. People had an excellent sense of time tonight, and especially Janet, who sped herself up to fit in to the format. For the topics, Janet, 1 minute 35. Carmen, 2 minutes and 5 seconds. Jean, 1 minute and 50 seconds. Ron, 1 minute and 35 seconds. Dee, 1 minute 50. Veda, 223. Art was 245. Dan was 140. Fraser was 140. To review, only Art exceeded the time and only by 15 seconds. So we did a great job with topics. For the evaluations, Art did 425, and to correct myself, I meant Jean stayed within exactly 4 minutes, which was a great job because she had more people to evaluate. And finally, the general evaluator in his evaluation portion will be given 3 to 4 minutes maximum to speak. Thank you, Dan.
Our next role player to come give a report is going to be Fraser, giving us the Hunters report.
Thank you. So, Jean had 2 hours, 1 you know. D had 2 hours, 1 arm, 1 you know, 1 false start. Janet had 3 hours. Peter had 4 hours, 2 arms, 1 Xerox. Carmen had 3 hours, 2 arms, 2 like. Ron had 1 arm, 1 sew, 1 false start. Veda had 1 hour, 1 sew, and 1 false start. Art had 1 hour, 1 sew, 1 false start. Dan was clean, and Fraser was also clean. Yeah.
We're not saying that's suspect or anything. Now I'm going to invite Dee to come to the front and give us a grammarian's report. You can tell us if anybody used the word of the day and if you heard any notable phrases in people's talks. Please welcome Dee. Let's give him a booster round.
Yes. Janet and Ron both used the word resilient. And that's my report.
A very efficient report. You were also the joke master. You have a joke?
Right, I have a couple jokes.
Come on up.
Yeah, okay. What did the apple say to the worm?
Bite me.
You're boring me. I seem to find lawyer jokes. What's the difference between a lawyer and a mosquito?
One's a blood-sucking.
One's a blood-sucking. Lawyer has a briefcase. How come sharks don't bite lawyers?
Professional courtesy.
Professional courtesy. Okay? Thank you.
Feel my pen.
Yeah.
Thank you. Let me give a few comments about the meeting. My primary focus is to evaluate the evaluators. One quick general thing I think that I'll say is just a reminder that what we want to do at the front of the room is always hand off from one person to the next. It's kind of part of Robert's rules. It's also just part of, think of it as just a picture for the camera. Somebody's up here, they introduce the next person, they shake their hand, they yield the stage to them. That person introduces or introduces the next person or just greets the other person back. So someone's always driving the car up here, if we'll keep that in mind. Now for evaluation, we had 2 excellent evaluators giving us their reaction to our table topics. First, I'll talk about art. Something I particularly liked about Art's evaluation is that he told us in the beginning what criteria he was going to use in evaluating the speakers. He was going to tell us if they greeted the audience, if they took 30 seconds, if they used a personal story. There was kind of a little list that he started out with. The thing I liked about that was it gave us the idea it was standardized, somewhat objective. He did an excellent job as he went through the various speakers, praising what they had done well. I believe he had a suggestion for every speaker. So it showed us that he had listened very carefully, and it probably gave those speakers some good feedback to improve their next talk. I think the one suggestion I've got for Art is to speak up a little louder because we've got the fan running in here, and it probably would be a better idea to come in front of the mic just to assist in that also. Then we had Jean, who was our second table topics evaluator. She started out giving praise and suggestion to each speaker. She obviously listened very carefully. She had some good suggestions, I believe. Towards the end, she ran out of gas just a little bit, or she felt like the speakers had done so well that she just couldn't think of anything to say. So for Art, after the praise, she said, I really don't have a suggestion for you. That definitely does happen sometimes, but it's better to try for a little more. And then at the end, it was interesting about Fraser. She said, I don't have a suggestion for you, but then one little thing I could think of, and then she was saying something about moving around the stage. And the combination of finishing up and thinking she was running out of time or something, but she was like dancing around the stage. And then sometimes you do this and that's good. So I couldn't tell when she sat down if she had just praised him for moving around or had told him that he needed to stop moving around. Fraser knew, okay. So everybody was paying more attention than me. I believe that's my only suggestion for Jean, just the fact that you were speeding up a little too much at the end. That's going to be my report, and at this point I'm going to call back the Toastmaster, Janet, to hand out meeting awards.
Fellow Toastmasters, we had a great meeting tonight, and we have a winner for Best Table Topics. Drum roll. And it's Jean Symington Craig. Yeah. Did a great job, a lot of confidence and clarity in that speech. Thank you.
Thank you.
There's your
Give that to me.
prize, I do.
Ta-da. You gotta put it in this hand. Shake. Yeah, you're and smile for the camera.
Next, we have our best evaluator. It was a tough choice, as always. We had 2 good ones. But guess who won? Jean, again. Come on up here.
Oh my goodness. Okay, now we can practice.
Thank you. Best evaluator.
Thank you. Smile for the camera.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, so let's see who is next.
Yes.
We'd like to call back our
It's Jean.
Jean. Jean,
President.
President.
Thank you. Thank you.
All
Okay, very good. Thank you very much, Madam Toastmaster. We're going to do a little bit of club business now. I do want to ask, before I get into that, because you guys can decide if you want to stay or not, but you're welcome to stay. We're going to be electing our officers this evening, and we have a little bit of club business. I do want to ask, though, just before we get into that, I'd love to have Carmen stand and just tell us something you liked about the meeting tonight. If you can think of something.
Well, it has been a really nice meeting in Toastmasters. It's the first time being in Fairfield and having this meeting here. I think I'm gonna learn a lot from every single one of you, because when I was hearing your speech, I was just thinking like I can learn a lot, because I am just beginning. So even though you are having, or maybe you feel so humble that you don't say, no, well, I have a lot of mistakes. Everybody has mistakes, but when you are learning, every single one of you is gonna be like my mentor from now on. So I really appreciate this opportunity to be here and the welcoming that you gave me. Thank you so much. And also I think I'm just gonna feel pretty happy coming here from now on. Thank you.
Well, Carmen, we can, when you're after the meeting breaks, if you'd like, or you can come back next week, whatever works, but we can help you if you want to fill out an application and become a member like that and go over that with you. So, yeah. And then our returning son here, Ron, so you want to just stand and just give us a little sense of kind of how it was?
It's like a reminder of having a social life again. And just how interesting it is when different people get up, whether you know them or not, and they start sharing their thoughts with you. And it just opens up more of your mind, like you're mentioning, Carmen. We all help each other grow and expand. And that's been missing, and it's needed and necessary. And you, Jean Symington Craig, just like in the old days, you're the best evaluator on the planet, and you just keep winning everything. It's great. Good to see you. Haven't broken your streak.
Thank you. Thank you, Ron. Well, I remember many, there are a lot of people who have been in Toastmasters in this community. We'd love to have them come, Ron, so you can put the word out. A number of them to invite them back. And we had some really great evaluators. I mean, I'd always going, dang, I thought mine was good, and then like that. So that's how it all works. But it's great to see you, and so glad that you responded, and glad that you're already feeling the juice. Okay. With that, we have two pieces of business we need to do tonight. One is, and the most important one, is to vote on our officer slate that we've been working on this last month, and I presented at the end of last meeting. So here's what we're going to do. And Veda, I didn't have a chance to talk to you. I know you've been out a little bit, and Hudaifa. So this is a little bit. I took into account took into account what you had said about possibly being out of town, maybe not able to meet every meeting. So. But let me just go from there. So I have you in as the secretary.
It's not gonna work. Because the secretary has to be at every meeting.
Well, we don't do it that way.
No, I refuse to do it. I spent a long time getting Dee to appoint a new secretary, and a secretary who would be here, and I could be another position, but I think other positions could be absent, like the vice president of membership. Could be.
Well, see, we always have to have the vice president of membership if we have a new member that's going to be starting. The treasurer we talked about maybe could do.
Maybe I could do that.
Okay.
I just don't, I just feel that the secretary should be now a record-keeping function with the computerization has become much more important to go back and do a data management job.
Well, okay, so, but, you know, if we can fit you in, because the other person that I haven't heard back from, and I'm not sure where Hudaifa is, do you know?
He's still
Is he in Jordan?
practicing, no, I think, well, I assume he's in town. It's Ramadan still, it's a month
Oh, okay,
long.
yes, that's right,
And so he's in
Thank you.
town, but he's
He's
back
observing.
home, he's observing during the day and
Yeah, no, good,
breaking
okay.
his fast.
Breaking his
at night.
fast at night, for sure, okay. So we might switch that,
I
you
mean,
know, Veda,
unless
because,
you can figure out a way to get me to be secretary, if I could somehow, if someone could email me the YouTube. But I still think there's a record-keeping function, that the secretary should be a stronger person. I was really,
What is the secretary position?
well, you
should
know,
tell us.
let's see.
I don't want to.
Okay, so there's what a lot of clubs do and what we have done and not done. So a lot of clubs will have a section of the meeting where they actually do club business. And everything that the officers are deciding gets voted on by the club, and the secretary takes a record of that. Okay, and so then that, and I think that's what Veda is referring
not just
to.
that, the secretary should be correcting the attendance for the meeting, should be keeping up the attendance.
Well,
That record, I know it's never been done, but that would be proper.
Yeah. So if you're not comfortable, you know, I mean, I can understand. So you've got a feel for how the job ought to be done. And I personally think the secretary is one of the lighter jobs, the way we have done
Yeah,
it.
but it was absolutely missing in the last year.
Right, well, the way we have done, well, it's all of it, you know, I mean, many, many years. So I'm just gonna think, what about treasurer? Because I think you'd also be a good treasurer, and Hudaifa is not here, and I think he could be a good secretary,
That would be acceptable.
perhaps.
That would
Okay,
be acceptable.
so we'll just go with that, okay. All right, so we'll flop that around. Okay, good. Okay, so, and by the way, all of the officers will be getting a booklet. Describes each of the roles. So you'll be reading in, and I meant to bring those, but I will bring them next week when we will have our first officer meeting where we'll have old officers, say senior officers, and then new officers, and all come together over in our Hy-Vee room. So, and then I can hand those out and we can kind of keep
At the
going.
cafe.
Over at the cafe. Okay, so our first officer, and so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna present the name. I'm gonna ask if there's anyone who'd like to be nominated instead. And then I'm gonna make a motion that we accept that person. And then someone will second it, and then I'll say all in favor, say aye. And then, now, you know, Peter, you're kind of the secretary a little bit. Could you just jot down like the results that we did this? Okay. Okay, so we're good. Now, this is members, so you just get to watch and ooh and ah. Okay. All right, so our first position, officer position, is Sergeant at Arms. The recommended candidate for that position is going to be Dee Stauffer. Do I have anyone who would like to nominate someone else from the floor for this position?
I nominate Fraser.
Fraser's outgoing. Fraser will be the mentor.
Right.
Okay. So I'd like to make a motion that we accept Dee as the Sergeant at Arms. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, Art's the second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the ayes have it. All right, moving along. Our next position is our treasurer. And as we've just discussed, and Veda, you weren't here to hear it, but I'm sure you have a familiarity. It's you know, keeping track of the money, being on our bank account at Iowa State, collecting the money, and putting in the new member applications when we have a new member. It's collecting the money, you know, twice a year we have our big annual or semi-annual, you know, dues collecting. All can be done, you know, via email and.
Right, maybe if someone gets money personally, either one of the other officers could,
Like at a given meeting, for
at a
example?
given meeting, another officer, either the vice president of membership or the secretary, could handle that to convey if I'm not there.
Yeah, and we're talking, Dan is the suggested candidate for vice president of membership, so we'll let that work, but we've been through this already, a little bit with thinking about Hudaifa, so I think it's doable. Okay. Good, so treasurer, do I hear any nominations from the floor for treasurer? Okay, our recommended candidate is going to be Veda. I'd like to make a motion that Veda be our treasurer for the upcoming year. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. Dee's a second. All right, good. So all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? It's hard to do opposed in this room, isn't it? Any opposed? Okay, wait, quick, before you have a chance to oppose. All right, good. So now we have Veda as the treasurer. All right, the secretary. Now, Hudaifa is usually here, other than when he's not. So we're just gonna have to work with it. We work with what we have, Veda. So I'm going to say our next position is secretary. Hudaifa is the recommended candidate. Do I have any nominations from the floor? Yes.
Oh, no, sorry, I was seconded it.
Oh, okay, wait, we haven't done the motion yet. Okay, good. Oh, I thought we were gonna have something exciting happen there. Yes.
A question from the floor?
Yep.
Do you think we should go ahead with him even if we haven't talked to him about it?
That's what happens when you miss meetings.
You get volunteered.
You get,
Yes.
I mean, would it be possible to just leave the position open?
we'll leave it as a pending. We'll leave it as a pending.
Did he
Okay.
write his name down as
No, he hasn't, he's been Ramadai. I don't know how to quite say
no, I'm
that.
saying, but did he write that down?
No, he wasn't here for that meeting either.
Oh, he wasn't? Okay.
No, he just was not
How
here.
does his name come up?
Because he's here, he's a member of the club, and I have visibility into all the
Okay, all
members.
right, I got it.
So,
I would be happy to assist them to give them instructions on how the job would be, what I think needs to be done. And he's doing, he has the data management experience to bring us into the pathways. So I think we could maybe just suggest him as a member, confirm him later, I mean, as a position.
yeah, I want it from our side, put him in, and if he needs to not be in, then he will let us know. Okay, so I don't hear any nominations from the floor. Question answered? Okay, good. So I'd like to make a motion that we have Hudaifa be our secretary pending his approval. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, great. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, okay, great. Any opposed? Okay, good. Good. Okay, then we move on to our Vice President of Public Relations, our VPPR. Recommended candidate there is Janet Evertson. Do I have any nominations from the floor? Okay. I'd like to make a motion that Janet be our new Vice President of Public Relations. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. Peter, you can pick whoever you want as this to note on the seconds. Okay. Okay. All in favor of Janet on this position? Aye. Great. Okay. Any opposed? Nope. You guys getting the hang of this? You see how it goes? All right. There's a rhythm. There's a rhythm. All right. Good. So Janet's going to be doing that job, or handling that role. And then our next position is our Vice President of Membership. And this is going to be, the recommended candidate is Dan Craig. And do I have any nominations from the floor? Okay. I'd like to move that Dan Craig is the Vice President of Membership. Do I have a second? Fraser? Okay. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, good. Okay, so Dan is our Vice President of Membership. Our Vice President of Education, recommended candidate and already in training as we speak, is Peter Armstrong. Do I have any nominations from the floor? Okay. I'd like to move that Peter Armstrong be our Vice President of Education. Do I have a second? Janet? All right, we'll switch it up here. Janet? Good. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, any opposed? Okay, good. So Janet's it. And by the way, I did see that we had a quorum, so I already had that. So good. Finally, President. So the recommended candidate is me. Do we have any nominations from the floor? It's okay. Okay. Well, all right. So,
I move that we accept Jean as president.
okay, thank you.
Yes. Second.
Second.
Okay. Okay, Dan, you want to do the all in favor, just so I don't tilt it somehow?
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. All right, good. So that is that. All right, well, excellent. So we have all those people. We have our first officer meeting next Tuesday, the 5th, at 6:45 over there in the cafe area. We usually get a table. Please feel free to get food if you come early enough to get that. Don't forget to vote, by the way. It is primary season. That's the last day. The other thing I need to do, we've got 3 minutes left. So first of all, let's congratulate all the new officers. Okay, excellent. Okay, the other thing we need to do is, and you remember this shopping that we have to do before the end of June. We have $290. I have sent out a PowerPoint that has a bunch of items in there. I've asked you guys to give me feedback. We have to take a vote in some way, shape, or form so that we can proceed. So what I'm asking you, I haven't gotten any comments from anyone.
I didn't get anything.
Well, I want you to make sure, Dee, that you give the treasurer, who is Dan, make sure he's got the right email for you,
Okay.
because that's how you get put in the system and that's how you get emails. Okay. So my thought is that the backup is that that you guys vote, that we'll let the officers make the final selections. Dan and I went through the whole site and we had ideas, and I don't want to beat something to death, but if you guys are good with letting the officers make the decisions for what's good for the club, it all has to be materials from the Toastmasters website. We can't all go out to dinner on it or anything like that. I guess that's what I'm proposing, because I'm not hearing another way to it. And we do need to have a vote. So, Dan, you want to move something?
I'd like to move that we nominate the officer group as the committee to decide how to spend this credit at the bookstore.
Okay, do I have a second on that? Is there any discussion, any further discussion? Okay. All right, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Good. Action, and moving forward on that. All right, so we actually did we're gonna finish on time, 9:15. Thank you everyone for coming. Peter, will you put me down for a speech next week? Do we have other speeches that,
We have Alex Pending
Pending.
and Fraser asked earlier this evening as well. So we can go from
0 to 3?
0 to 3 if we wish
Okay.
next week.
Mine will be an icebreaker, 4 to 6.
Icebreaker 4 to 6 I'll send you
In
an email.
pathways, it's in pathways. Here we go. I'm gonna adjourn the meeting, and then you can feel free to talk to Peter and we can get some things done. Thank you. Meeting's adjourned. All right.